Hello and welcome to another episode of the Limitless podcast by me, Noona. In this episode, I have a wonderful guest where we talk about future self-work. We talk about courage and confidence and why you will never ever feel ready. Simon is an executive coach, a best-selling author of Energize, and an international keynote speaker whose message is simple and uncompromising. Stop acting from your past self and start living from your future one. Welcome to the Limitless podcast. I'm so excited to be welcoming Simon Ong to my podcast today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. I absolutely love inviting you on because I've been following your work for quite a while and we have quite similar backgrounds on how we ended up in coaching and in the corporate world. And now you're an international speaker, written a best-selling book, which is amazing, an author. So Simon, tell me, welcome to Dubai.
Thank you so much. I love coming back to this city.
What do you love about it?
There's an energy about it. I'm a big proponent about the concept of energy. And I find that when you put yourself in environments where it energizes you in terms of possibility, your podcast is all about being limitless. It shows you what is possible when you have a vision and you have a determination to make something real.
Yeah. And do you know what? I do actually think Dubai is, I always call it the land of the limitless because it has this limitless feel, like you say, that anything is possible and the sky isn't even the limit.
Yeah.
And I really feel that. So I love that you touched on that as well. Is Dubai going to be seeing more of you in 2026?
Hopefully. I always enjoy coming back to this city. And just on the back of what you said, that reminds me of a Bruce Lee quote that goes, use no limit as limit. And it's so important because when you expose yourself to different environments, and not just Dubai, it could be in terms of your social circle, in terms of the people you spend time around, what you read, it really shows you how much more you are capable of. And often we need to be exposed to that possibility for us to realize that we have far deeper potential within ourselves.
I love that you started with that because what happens if you don't know that you're not being exposed to something that's stretching you enough?
I think from personal experience, you know that when there's this pull inside of you, this desire to do something different, where you start questioning if you fit into your current environment anymore. And that's all part of growth. Not everyone is going to grow at the same pace you are. But when you evolve or when there's something pulling you forward, for me, it's like your future self coming back in time and pulling you forward, giving you a signal that where you are now is not where you're meant to be. And the challenge for us is to listen to those signals. And they always start off very small, as a whisper, as a clue, as an opportunity. But we have to say yes to them. We have to say, I'm curious enough to explore where that may lead without being attached to the outcome.
Yeah. And I think what happens, and I know you coach a lot of executives and high achieving people, I think what happens is rather than, a lot of people end up questioning themselves, like what's wrong with me, as opposed to looking at their environment or looking, and I think that's where people end up getting quite stuck, don't they?
And I think for me, that's a sign that perhaps you've outgrown your environment, because for you to move to the next level, sometimes you have to let go of who you were, because as you evolve, as you learn new knowledge, as you learn new skills, your destiny is determined by your ability to listen to what it is, your purpose, to what it is you desire. And now you then have to have the awareness, and that's why awareness is the beginning of every growth journey, to take a step out of that comfort zone, to explore what is possible, and to be open to the unknown. Yeah. And if you can tolerate the uncomfortable nature that comes with the unknown, then anything becomes possible.
That's the key that you just said, tolerating uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
And I think so many people are so unwilling to tolerate it because it's new. And I think what you said was really interesting about letting go of a version of you.
Yeah.
And that can be really scary for a lot of people because they haven't met the version of themselves that is actually going to take them to the next level.
They haven't met them, but they can.
Yeah, how?
And we do this through visualization.
Oh, I love that.
And I love this exercise because when I was early in my journey, I was doing this all the time. I would simply close my eyes and imagine I was sitting at a table where opposite me, sitting in the chair, was the future version of myself, maybe 30, 40 years from now. And this person was the ideal version of me, doing the things that I wanted to do. And I would simply listen to what he had to share with me. advice, wisdom, and guidance. And I realized that that individual is me, but it's me having accomplished the things I wanted to do. And all I had to do in the present was to adopt the characteristics of the me in the future. So we can still connect with that future self. And I think that's what's holding a lot of us back. When we make decisions in the present, we're acting from our past self. We're saying things like, well, it's never worked out. I wasn't born into this. I don't have the resources. But if we always act and make decisions from our past self, we'll never make the progress we want. But when we act from our future self, we create a new identity in the present.
Yeah, I love future self work. I really do. I think it's so powerful. And what I love is what you're saying is that the wisdom lies within us. It's not like you need to look at anyone else. Like my future self will be completely different to yours.
Yeah.
What does your future self look like now?
My future self has evolved. When I first did it, of course, I was not in a relationship. I wasn't a parent. Now I'm a parent. I have a family. My future self now is someone who is truly enjoying what they're doing, but also creating a path for his children to follow in their own legacy, giving them an opportunity to follow what makes them feel alive. And I think that's for me, the legacy I want to leave behind for my children is to teach them that the greatest joy you can experience in life is living a life true to yourself. There was a quote I heard towards the end of last year that goes, all of us are born as originals, but too many of us die as copies of other people. Oh, and so I want my daughter to grow up to become an original, to not forget who she is, because we're all born with different skills and talents. As you said, your premises will be different to mine. What comes naturally to you will be different to what comes naturally to me. But to focus on that, to lean into what makes us unique is for me one of the greatest challenges, because it's so easy to be distracted by what someone else is doing and by trying to copy other people because you think that version of success is what you should be aiming for.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up your daughter into it, because I actually was going to ask you about this because I think one of the things that really showed me that I had a lot of internal limits myself was having children. And I have to admit, I haven't found bringing up kids easy. I've got 2, 9 and 10, because I wasn't brought up in a way where we were taught to manage our emotions and where, being brought up in the 80s, I'm older than you, I'm 47, it was completely different to the way parenting is happening now. And it really did bring up quite a lot of my own gaps and my own limits. And I wonder whether you experienced the same thing of becoming a dad.
I did, because when I grew up, it was very much, I come from an Asian family. So it has always been about results.
I'm Arab, so it's the same.
and so it's always been about results. And I remember one time I came home after receiving an invite to speak at an event, and I would tell my dad, and it wouldn't be, well done, great job, how did you get it, you're going to do amazing. It was, how much they're paying you. And so it has always been about results. And I lacked a lot of that emotional connection as I grew up in a very strict household. And so learning about that with my daughter, because I want to parent in a very different way, has been a massive learning curve, but something that has been helped by my coaching. Because of course, when you're coaching clients, you also have to take into account emotional intelligence, the emotional aspect of how you can bring out the best in a client. And so a lot of that work has been very useful to bring into parenting.
Yeah, I find that. And I find a lot of my coaching clients, they come to me because they want to become better CEOs and they want to manage their teams better. But actually what happens is they end up having better relationships with their partners and they become better parents. And I think it's so interesting, isn't it, how this work has such a domino effect. But I personally don't think anything prepares you for having children.
Absolutely. I think you can do all the reading, which we did.
Yeah.
You can watch the videos, you can talk with your friends, but ultimately every child is different.
Yeah.
And so the way you parent, especially if you have more than one child, the way you parent one may be very different to the way you parent another. And I think for me, that takes a lot of awareness to understand that, because it's so easy to just parent all of your children in the same way without realizing that just as you would operate in a team, in a corporate environment, everyone receives information differently. Everyone is motivated by different factors. And so when you understand that, you can show up better as a parent. Yeah.
And I remember my dad saying to me when I was younger, treat people the way you want to be treated. And I'm sure it came from a right place. He wanted me to be kind and gracious and all of those things. And actually, it's the worst thing that you can do because the way I want to be treated is completely different to the way my friend wants to be treated, or my colleague, or my daughter. The way she wants to be treated is completely different to my son. And I think once I realized that, it actually allowed me to realize it's got nothing to do with me. Like, I actually have to listen to what people are telling, because people will tell you, and your children will tell you. My son, his love language is very much time. He wants to sit down and spend time, and that's how he feels loved. My daughter is through gifts, so she will make cards, and she wants to make things for people that she loves. And I think it's so important to recognize that. And that's hard when you haven't had the training, or or all of those things.
And I think it also comes down to the level of communication you have with your children. So we've just come off the back of the holiday season, and my daughter's back to school, and we were just reflecting on the holiday season before she started school again. And I said to her, what has been your favorite memory from the holiday season? And she said, very simple, time with you and mum. And what that taught me and reminded me is something we as adults often forget, is that one of the greatest gifts that we can give people is our energy and our presence. We think it's time, but it's actually energy and presence, because you can be with someone for an hour, but are you actually with them?
Yeah.
Are you actually there enjoying those minutes, those hours with them? Or is your mind elsewhere? Is your mind distracted by something else? And so when my daughter shared that with me, it just reminded me how powerful our energy and presence is with people, whether it's our children, our partner, our colleagues, or the people we spend time with.
Yeah, and I did read somewhere that children really only need 20 minutes a day.
Yeah.
It sounds like nothing, doesn't it? And when I really started looking at it, I was like, have I actually spent 20 one-to-one minutes with my children? And it's easy to do, and it can also feel really hard when you're busy and you're running a business, and you're traveling and all of those things. And that really reminds me as well what you said about, I love the fact that you even asked your daughter that. Because some people just don't. And it's kind of sitting down and having those conversations with her and allowing her to tell you. So now maybe her love language is time.
Yeah, and also just getting her to write. I've been very conscious about getting her to write down her thoughts, her feelings, and her reflections on each day, because I find not only does she process what's going on in her head, but also we as parents, we get to understand things she may not articulate all the time. So she would write it down. We would also do the same, and we would just share. We would just share at the dinner table. Okay, what did you write down for what you're grateful for? What was your most enjoyable moment today? What made you smile today? And it helps us just understand each other. And for me, there's an element of vulnerability that comes with that. Even when I notice she might be nervous about starting something for the first time, or going to a new class and not knowing anyone in there. When I sense that, going back to my coaching training, I know that the best way is not to tell them what to do, but to try and find a way to show them they already know the answers. And so one of the things that I do with my wife is we would both share with our daughter vulnerabilities. So for example, recently I said to my daughter, well, Dad's got a big speaking event next year. It's probably one of the biggest audiences he's spoken to. And, I'm actually really nervous about it. And, I probably will have to rehearse a bit more for this to make it work and to make it succeed. What sort of advice do you have for me? And so just seeking her counsel, not just showing her that the parents know it all, but actually you have wisdom inside of you as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's so powerful. And also what you're doing is showing her that her opinion matters, her voice needs to be heard. And especially as a girl, I think that's really powerful, really powerful. What is one thing that you would keep from the 80s handbook of parenting?
One thing I would certainly keep from the 80s handbook of parenting is the value of hard work.
Yeah.
Because looking at my parents, they were immigrants into the United Kingdom. I've had to work hard as well to get to where I am. I want my daughter, my children, if I have more, to value hard work, to understand that if you work hard, you can go somewhere. And if you work hard consistently for a longer period than most people, you'll get further than most.
Yeah.
But the difference I would add on top of that is to work hard at something you enjoy. Work hard at something that makes you feel alive. Because if you do that and you actually enjoy the thing you're working hard in, you have an unfair advantage over everyone else.
Yeah, that's so true. That's really good advice. I'm going to take that on. I think I've been really, we live in Dubai. Everything is so easily accessible.
Yeah.
And I'm very conscious of the fact of not having my children think that everything can happen really easily. And I just noticed it the other day where my kids were like, oh, can we have sushi today?
Yeah.
And I just was like, no, actually, no, we actually can't. And I just thought, I just need them to, it's not their fault they've been brought into a family who we've worked very hard to get to where we are. My dad, grew up in poverty and we're very blessed, but they won't have that. They won't. I watched my dad work hard and make his own money, and they won't have that same imprint that we did. And so it is, it is trying to be very conscious of that. And so I think that's important.
I think we can also help them in a different way.
Yeah.
And I very much relate to what you shared just now, because it's the same with my daughter. My parents came to UK. They came from poverty, and so they had to work 2-3 jobs at a time to raise income and to grow a family. And I've had to do the same, but now with my daughter coming out into the world, she has a lot more privileges than I or even my parents had when we were young. And so often, she would come to me when she sees a nice shop, she'll say, "Hey, Dad, can I get the chocolates, or can I get something from this shop?" So I used to just automatically say no. But after speaking with other parents who are also entrepreneurs, now what I do is, instead of just saying no, I give them a challenge to put them out of their comfort zone in order for her to learn something. So one time when we passed a shop called Hotel Chocolat in the UK, she said to me, "Hey, Dad, can I get some chocolates from here?" And I said, "No, but I'm not stopping you from going inside that shop and asking yourself." And so she was a bit hesitant at the beginning, and then she walked in, a bit nervous, tapped the lady on the leg and said, "Do you have a sample I can have?" And the lady knelt down and said, "Oh, what a cute thing to ask," and actually gave her something bigger. And she came out with a nice gift for free. And so for me, that process, even though I said no, I said, I'm not stopping you from asking.
Yeah.
It's trying to teach her that actually you can learn a new skill from this, and it shouldn't always just be given to you.
Yeah.
You've got to work a little bit to get the end result.
I love that. I'm really going to try that. Thank you. I did not expect us to go into parenting so much, but I actually love it. And I do think it really shapes us as parents. And
absolutely. I always say to the leaders I coach in corporate organizations, there is so much that you can learn from parenting.
Yeah.
I did a speaking event recently. One of the things I shared with the audience is that when we grow up, we fall into the trap of planning as adults, but forgetting to dream like children. And children remind you of what is possible. And we need a bit of that reminder, because we can get so serious as adults that we forget to inject that creativity, inject that bit of fun into how we go about doing things.
Yeah, I totally agree. So the date of recording, it's the first week of January. And as someone who, maybe some people are going into this, they had a good break and they're now already exhausted. They've had like 500 emails to go through. What are your top 5 tips that you could give to someone who's already feeling the pressure that has started within the new year?
First thing that comes to my mind is to strip things away, because we've always fallen into this trap of thinking productivity is about adding more and doing more. Well, that's not really going to be effective if you already lack time, if you already have a full schedule. So the first thing is to look at your calendar and evaluate what things can you eliminate, cut down or minimize in order to give yourself space to focus on the things that you actually want to do. Because unless you do that, you're not actually going to get around to doing all those things you want to do. So that's the first thing, is to cut things away, cut the fat away from your calendar, and really think about, is this thing I've put in my diary an absolute yes? Or is it, well, I don't really feel like I want to do that. I don't think that really energizes me. Maybe I say no to it, or I postpone it for another time. So the first thing is really getting back space in your calendar. And then you can kind of think about the other stuff. Second, for me, is beginning with the end in mind, which is a sort of habit that Stephen Covey touched on in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And for me, if you don't know what a successful 2026 will look like for you, how do you know what step to take next? And this is why one of my favorite mantras to people is visualize in years, plan in months, execute in days. And if you follow that, you create a better future.
Could you say that again?
So visualize in years, plan in months, execute in days. Because without the execution, the plan doesn't materialize.
And how many years do you think is like the optimal to plan ahead? Is it 1? Is it 5? For you to really get...
I would say at least a decade.
10 years?
Visualize where life could be in 10 years.
I did not expect you to say that.
And then work back. I mean, this is why it's still important to think about what a successful 2026 would look like for you.
Yeah.
But you also want to be mindful of the fact things take a lot longer than you realize. Once you get started, there's so much to learn. And things aren't going to happen overnight.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because I think we live in such a world where people expect things to happen so quickly.
Yeah.
And I love that. Things do take time. And how long have you been working for yourself, been an entrepreneur?
So quite timely, that question, because I quit my corporate job in 2016.
Oh, wow, 10
so
years.
That's 10 years.
Amazing.
And the first few years, it was just pounding the ground,
Tough.
doing calls, meeting people, having long conversations, not wondering where it was all going to lead. And I think that's partly fun. That's part of the journey. It's the fun of it. When I started, all I wanted to do was just be a coach. I said to myself, if I could build a successful one-to-one coaching practice, I would be a happy guy. But then from there, the speaking came. I then followed that curiosity. The speaking grew, and then I was doing media interviews, and then the book deal came, and then I was doing podcast interviews. Now I'm investing and advising businesses. But none of those things were planned out from the beginning. It was just take one step at a time and see where it goes. And I think what stops people making that first step is they're evaluating the future too quickly. They say, well, what if this doesn't work out? Well, what if this isn't what I want to do? Truth is, the best feedback is live feedback. It's putting it into action and seeing what happens. That's the only way you're really going to know. And so when I look at the most successful people in any field, the common habit I see is this bias towards action. They have a razor thin gap between idea and execution.
Love that. So I've got so many questions from that, but I'll come back to that. So we've got, the first one was take things off your diary. Second one, plan really 10 years in advance and then
begin
go
with
back.
the end in mind.
Begin with the end in mind. I love that, actually. I grew up listening to Stephen Covey with my dad in the car, and he would always say that. So I feel like this, I love that you mentioned that.
And I think the reason, just to finish on, the reason why I think that's important is because they have different energetic effects on you. When you have to rely on motivation, that's what we call a push force. You always have to find the next hit of motivation, and that never lasts. But when you think in terms of a future vision, that's more of a pull. That's a magnetic pull forward. If it's so compelling, so powerful, it just pulls you forward. You have to think about it. The equivalent analogy of this, it's like if there's a house that's burning on fire and you have to wait a while for the fire service to put it out, somebody will have to motivate you to go in and help someone if you have no connection to anyone in that building. But if it's a loved one in that building, well, you don't think. You're straight in. And that's because the vision of something happening to them pulls you forward to doing something. And it's the same thing with what I'm saying here, is that you need something so powerful, so emotionally connected to your desires that you don't need the motivation. But if you're relying on motivation, you have to constantly find the next hit in order to keep you going forward.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. I'm going to do my 10-year plan. I thought I was good doing 5 years, but I love the 10-year. Okay, all right, so that's number 2.
Number 3 is design an environment around you that makes it impossible not to succeed. What I mean by this is not just the people you spend time with, it's who you follow online on social media, it's the books you read, it's what you watch, what you listen to, even the physical spaces where you do your everyday activities in. So to give you one thing that you can do is that if you plan your week at home, if you do that all the time, sometimes the environment can get a bit boring. Now imagine if you change your environment to maybe a lobby at a beautiful hotel where you're planning your week from. Suddenly that changes the energy and the excitement that comes with planning your week ahead.
Okay. All right. I love that. To get your environment right. But I love what you said about, be careful of what you're consuming as well, because it's so easy to just, there's so much information coming in, and these apps are designed to keep us on. And so I do love that. I think that's really important. Okay, great. We've got all of that. So we've taken things out of our diary. We've planned 10 years, and then we're very careful of what our environment.
Optimizing our environment.
Yeah.
And then the next one I would say is then have courage to follow through on those ideas and the things you're telling yourself that you want to do. Because for me, courage is the first step towards real change. Once you're aware that something has to change, courage will make you move forward and create momentum. A lot of us say to ourselves, well, I'm not going to start this because I don't feel confident enough. The truth is you're never going to feel confident. Confidence is a byproduct of taking action.
Yeah.
Once you have the courage to take that first step, your internal voice then says to you, actually, that wasn't too bad. Maybe we can try the next step. And so you build confidence by taking action. So it's discovering the courage to do things you've never done before. Find courage to step out your comfort zone on a regular basis. And this is why I love entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
But I also think that entrepreneurship isn't for the faint-hearted.
No.
Because it challenges you every single day to step out of your comfort zone, to try something different, to speak to people you may not have done before. But when you can do that, you literally begin to open opportunities to possibilities you could have never imagined.
Yeah. And for someone who's listening and who's thinking, okay, Simon, I love all of that, but I don't know where to find my courage from. What would you advise them on doing? Like, is it something to do with their body? Is it within their mind? Or
it's a mindset thing. And so anyone finding taking courage challenging, what you want to do is break whatever goal or whatever vision you're working towards into the smallest possible step. So, for example, when I wanted to become a public speaker, I wasn't so confident about going to a stage where nobody knew me and speaking in front of a larger audience. So I said to myself, well, what's the easiest first step I could take? Well, maybe I will go on stage as part of a panel. So I'm on a panel with 4 other speakers and we're sharing the limelight. And so the spotlight isn't just on me. And that would build my stage confidence. And then maybe I would progress to a fireside chat. So now I'm sharing the audience still with someone else. And then by that point, I've hopefully built up enough confidence to then speak on my own on the platform.
okay.
And so it's how do you break up the journey into very small, tangible steps that don't sound as scary?
Yeah.
Because as we grow, there's really 3 zones that we're operating in. There's a comfort zone, the stretch zone, and a panic zone. Now, you don't want to be in the panic zone because it can scare you so much that you want to just live in your comfort zone. But you want to be in the stretch zone where you're doing something you've not done before, but it's not too scary that it puts you off.
Yeah. And I like that because that goes back to your first point of breaking it down of what you're doing in 10 years. You've got that for 1 year, a month and a day. And then it's taking those little steps to build the momentum. Okay, great. And what is the final advice that you would give someone?
My final advice is, and I'll explain it more practically as well, is to think different and creatively. Because if you do what everyone else is doing, you're not going to stand out.
Yeah.
And we live in a world where attention is scarce. And so if you are just a me too, then, well, nobody's going to notice you. And so your ability to think and act different is what is going to get people's attention. Now, in marketing, they call this UTP.
Yeah.
And UTP stands for unique talking points. What are you doing that makes people talk about what you're doing so much that they can't help but share it? And so you want to think about whatever you want to achieve, how can you do it in a way that gets you there either faster or in a way that hasn't been done before? Because then people look up, they notice.
Yeah. And do you think that comes from being consistent and just doing it? Or do you think you really need to hone in on one thing and do that really well when it comes to marketing and getting yourself out there?
I think it's all about experimentation.
Yeah.
Because especially when you're at the beginning of your journey and you might not know fully what your strengths are or what you're naturally good at, it's just conduct experiments and don't be attached to whether it works out or not. Just see it as a bit of a game where you're going to conduct lots of experiments, review if they've worked out or not, and see what happens next. So, for example, one experiment I used to do at the beginning is when I went to events, I would always arrive early and I would sit at the front of the room because I knew the people I would meet on the front rows would always be on average far more interesting than the people at the back.
Yeah.
And the relationships I built from sitting at the front rows, the connections I made were incredible. But it was simply by doing something different, which is arriving early, sitting at the front and just speaking to the people around me.
I love that. And who did you end up, what's the most interesting person you met?
So actually someone who endorsed my book, Simon Sinek.
Oh, wow. You met Simon in a front?
No. So this was an event he was doing an after dinner speech in London.
Yeah.
And it was to promote his second book, Leaders Eat Last. And so I went early to this event and I spoke to the woman at the front who had the guest list. And I said to her, can I have a quick look at the guest list to check if some of my friends are coming? And so she showed me the guest list and I spotted that Simon Sinek and I were the only Simons at this event. And so I said to myself, this is my icebreaker.
Yeah.
And so I went to the bar, I saw him at the bar, just kind of rehearsing, just preparing his speech once the dinners had been finished. So I walked out to him and said, Simon, good to meet the only other Simon this evening. And suddenly he said, no way, you're also called Simon as well? And so we ended up striking up a conversation.
Great opener.
It was simply by arriving early and doing things that other people weren't.
Yeah, I love him, by the way. I think his work is really amazing. And to be able to get him to endorse your book is incredible.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's really clever. I love that. I wasn't expecting you to say that, actually.
Yeah, no, and this is, I think, how we stand out and move ahead faster is thinking creatively by doing things in a way that the majority simply aren't doing.
Yeah.
Another example that comes to my head is I was at one of Richard Branson's launch events for his book, Finding My Virginity. And it was in the theatre in London. And there was a moment where they had an interlude, where there was a musical band performing on the side of the stage. During that moment, there was someone probably about 4 or 5 rows from the front writing their business pitch on a piece of paper with their contact details. That person folded the sheet of paper into a paper aeroplane and threw it at Branson. And when the lights turned back to the stage, he had a paper airplane on his lap. Wow. And he opened it up and he read the pitch out to the audience and then handed it to his team and said, just congratulations to whoever did that very bold move. My team will get back to you.
Amazing.
And that's how this person in the audience cut through the entire room and got his voice heard by just thinking a little different.
Yeah, really clever. And I think that goes back to what you were saying and what I've seen you talk about is that stillness as well.
Yeah.
That I think when there's too much noise, you don't actually get to hear your own uniqueness within yourself. And last year, my dad passed away last October.
Sorry to hear, yeah.
Thank you. And by February, I think I was definitely emotionally burnt out. And in March, I ended up going on a sacred pause. And I had 2 weeks of just complete silence.
Yeah.
I turned off my phone. I reorganized all my all my client calls. And that sacred pause actually saved my year because I was able to just go inside. Yeah. It wasn't particularly comfortable. The only thing I was on a really strict protocol. I couldn't read a book. I wasn't allowed to listen to any podcasts. I could journal.
Okay.
I just stared into space. The only thing I was allowed to do was to parent. My kids got home from school. And actually that sacred pause, I still weave it into my days now where I'll have 10 minutes. If I can feel I'm getting overwhelmed or, your nervous system can go, that sacred pause. And when I was doing research for this interview, I realized you talk a lot about stillness as well. And I wonder, how you weave that into your day and what was it that made you come up with realizing that was so important?
For me, the first realization was actually when my mum passed away when I was 17.
Sorry to hear.
Because, and this is obviously going back a number of years, but at that point, there was no social media. There was no such thing as online support for mental health issues. And you only had your family and friends to speak to. And if they had no experience of bereavement, then they didn't really know how to support you in a healthy way. And so at that time, I wasn't comfortable sharing what had happened with my friends at school. So I just went inward.
Yeah.
And I couldn't speak openly to my parents about it, again, because there was no emotional support in that way. And so I really dealt with it myself by going inward through writing. A friend of mine, Diana Chow, she shared this beautiful quote in one of her speeches where she said, writing is humanity distilled into ink. And so the process of writing for me was part of that healing. But what it showed me is that when we go still, when we go inward, we begin to realize how wise we truly are. We connect with our innate wisdom, and we all have it. And we really begin to understand who we are as a human. The tragedy is most of us don't know who we are because we don't spend time going inwards. And so that was the first experience of realizing how powerful stillness is.
Yeah.
And then when I quit my job and the sort of early roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship, just finding time to pause and take a step back and to just be with my thoughts and to just explore them, clarify them, and to understand I'm not what I'm thinking. I'm just the observer of these thoughts. And then over time, as I became more immersed in this personal development world, I understood that we actually are both the sculptor and the sculptor in the sense that through thought, we create the reality that we live in. And at any given point, I get the power to choose one thought over another. And realizing that for me was very empowering.
Yeah, and that's young, 17, you said, I think you said, And how did that, do you think that shaped a lot of you searching for the personal development?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that when you've gone through a bereavement, especially that early, it matures you overnight.
Yeah.
Your outlook on life changes. And one thing I appreciated a lot after that was how short life is. I think we all throw the sort of concept around about life being short and chase your dreams, but I don't think people really appreciate it until they've gone through something like that, because they would make very different choices. And so for me, literally seeing how fragile life is, really made me evaluate my own life choices and to make very different decisions.
Yeah, I think it's until you've gone through it, it's not something that you even are able to comprehend. And I always said, so my dad was my best friend. He was my mentor, and he was the world to me. And I always knew my dad was like my safety net. He was very good for my nervous system. As long as he was around, everything was going to be okay. And he was a very a real man's man. You know, I'm here to support you and protect you and all of this. And so when he passed, I always knew that there would be a me before and a me after, and that I would never be the same again, because the worst thing that could ever happen had happened. And it's so strange because I always thought I would crumble. And actually what has ended up happening is I've met a version of me that I never knew existed, who's actually really strong. But those months where I went on my sacred pause, I had to figure out what safety felt like without him. That was the hard part. Once I did that, the strength came.
Yeah, it's powerful because I think that even when I look back on my journey, you realize that every person's journey has dark periods.
Yeah.
But often those dark periods are necessary because we wouldn't know how strong we are otherwise.
Yeah.
And through those dark periods, they equip us with the wisdom to create the best moments of our life.
Yeah, I love that because I think so many people avoid pain and avoid the toughness. And actually, I think, and I say this to my clients, it's the biggest gift because you get the opportunity to see what you're made of. And so, you know, even with my kids, when they find things really difficult, I'm like, good.
Yeah.
Because now you get to see how strong you really are.
Absolutely.
And they kind of laugh at me and, you know, and think I'm being ridiculous. But they do eventually, they will get it one day. Like they're upset that they didn't get to choose a family movie. That's all right. I'm glad you got to experience disappointment, you know, and they're like, oh. I'm meant to be happy all the time. Like, actually, no, you know, and I think now when things are really tough, I know I'm on the cusp of meeting a much stronger version of me. And I like that.
Also, when we talk about pain, it's also important to touch on the fact that you have to reflect on the pain because pain on its own just hurts.
Yeah.
It creates suffering, creates trauma. But when you take a moment to pause, to be still and to reflect on that period of pain.
Sacred pause.
Yeah, the sacred pause. That's what transforms that pain into strength. But if you don't reflect on it, if you don't really look back and, you know, heal from that experience you've gone through, then you're never really benefiting from that experience.
Yeah.
It's going to draw you down. It's going to drain your energy until you've found space to reflect on it in a purposeful way.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. And so many people are so scared of that silence. They're so scared to hear what will come up.
Yeah.
And that goes back to what you were saying, is that, you know, not wanting to actually listen or hear where the pain is. But that's the gift, isn't it? That's
absolutely.
where it comes.
And this goes back to awareness. It's to have that level of awareness where you can listen to what your body's trying to tell you, and you're conscious enough to want to be with your thoughts, to understand them, and to figure out what the best way forward is, knowing that you always have a choice.
Yeah. And I think when you've got a 10-year plan, when you've met your future self, when you can sit with yourself in silence, all of those things, I think, allow you to be able to deal with the trauma and to...
I mean, it's like this, another quote comes to my mind by Rumi, when Rumi says, when you quiet the mind, the soul will speak. And this is why for so many people during the COVID pandemic, when you had no choice but to go inward, people started evaluating their life decisions. People came out of the pandemic making very different decisions because of the time they had during the pandemic to really evaluate where they were in their life.
Yeah. And there's two camps, isn't it? Because there's people who did that, and there's also people who didn't sit with the silence and consumed and came out of that even worse because they didn't have the human connection to stop the consuming online and or if it was drinking or whatever it was. And I think those are the people who actually came out of COVID because they didn't use that time to stop and to go silent and to go inwards.
Absolutely. And this is why I think intentionality is so key. It's, you know, a lot of us complain that we don't have the time, yet we waste the time we have.
Yeah.
And so the key is, are you intentional with the time that you have given to you? Because if you are, then each day you're making progress. And when you're making progress a year from now, when you look back at today, you will probably be embarrassed by who you were a year ago.
Yeah.
If you've done the growth, if you've done the development that's required.
Yeah. What have you got planned in the next 10 years? Like what's your dream that you want to do?
For me, in a way, I think I'm living my dream at the moment. I get to spend time with my family. I get to say yes or no to opportunities, and I get to impact people's lives. So for me, if I had to simplify it down, my one key goal now is just to be better than who I was yesterday. Because if I am, great things will happen. So each day I'm asking myself, how can I be a little better than who I was yesterday, with no attachment to where that may lead to, and being open to my curiosities. And for me, that creates the ability to adapt to whatever the world throws your way.
Amazing.
So that for me is my simplest, concise goal, just be better than who I was yesterday.
I love that.
And be open to what the universe throws my way.
Yeah, well, hopefully lots of things that put a smile on your face. And I looked on your YouTube channel. You have a very large following on there. It's nearly 200,000.
Yeah, so we started the channel in February. Well, I mean, we had the channel for years, but we never really intentionally did anything with it until February 2024. And then we decided, okay, let's start putting out long form content. And then within 10 months, it went for 100,000 subscribers. We had one video that has, I think it's now 4 million plus views.
Wow.
Which was me just giving life lessons when I hit 40 years old. It was, I'm 40, if you are in your 20s or 30s, watch this.
Wow, it's
and
really
it was me
hit a
sharing
nerve.
40 lessons that I would share with my younger self.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, it really hit a nerve, and people ended up sharing it thousands of times. And it's been a great way to share my message to a much broader audience.
Yeah. And do you think would you give that advice to any entrepreneurs, like start a YouTube channel?
Absolutely, especially if you're thinking about your personal brand, is start a YouTube channel. And the reason it's important to understand the difference between YouTube and the other platforms, in the sense that if you go into TikTok or Instagram and you watch a reel, the average reel is maybe 15 to 20 seconds long, but most people just swipe past it. So you're not really building trust or loyalty. You're building awareness, but you're not building trust or loyalty. But when somebody watches a really good long form video of you on YouTube, let's say it's 10 to 15 minutes in length, and they like what you've shared, chances are they're going to watch the next video and the next video. And so after a couple of videos, they've spent nearly an hour with you, and they're building trust and loyalty with what you have to share. And that's how you start to build an audience that loves what you do.
Yeah.
And I think that as more households switch to smart TVs, more consumption will be made of YouTube on televisions.
Yeah.
And so you're really optimizing for more people within the households to watch your content.
And did you have a clear strategy on what to post, or was it, I want to talk about this, and did you post every day? Did you post once a month?
Yeah, so we've always targeted a minimum of twice a month, just to give us flexibility, because of course it's not the only thing I'm doing. I'm doing other stuff.
Yeah.
But what we learned from the journey, I think, is also a great analogy about business, in the sense that you could record a video that has great content, but if it's not packaged well, nobody's going to click on it. In the same way, you could have a great product or service in business, but if it's not marketed well, it's not packaged well, well, nobody's going to pay attention. And so we had intention behind the packaging. Now, when I talk about packaging, it's, well, what's the title of the video going to be? What's the thumbnail going to look like? Is there going to be words on the thumbnail? What is it going to say? And does it resonate with the video title? And what's the first 30 seconds? Is it going to grab them and keep their attention long enough to want to listen to the rest of the video? So once we started thinking very purposely about those areas, that's what I think really helped videos to do well on the channel.
Well, that's great advice. And I thought it was amazing. I mean, that's not, that's a lot of people consuming your long content, 200,000. So great. Well, I'm looking forward. Are you planning to do a lot more in this year?
Yeah, we're going to do more. It just depends on how other stuff works out. So there's a few more projects I'm working on. If a couple of them take off, then that might impact the posting schedule a little bit. But otherwise, we're still targeting, hopefully, 2 a month going forward.
Great. And so what projects are you allowed to talk about them? What have you got coming up in 2026?
Yeah, so I'm now advising and investing in a few companies. So that kind of takes up a bit more time than it used to, because I didn't do that before last year.
Yeah.
And potentially another book. So I'm just thinking about what to work on for my next book idea. And again, so if that starts taking traction, then it'll be back on writing mode.
Great. Well, as someone who talks and has written about Energize, I have to say this conversation has left me really energized. Thank you so much for coming on. Would you like to tell the audience where they can find you and all your details?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as you kindly mentioned just now, YouTube is an obvious way to find my work. You can just type Simon Alexander Ong and find me on YouTube. And I'm on all the major platforms like LinkedIn, Instagram. My handle's at Simon Alexander O. And if you go to my website, simonalexanderong.com, you can sign up for the newsletter there.
Great. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on. I hope you can come on again next time you're in Dubai. But I love this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.